Admittedly, 2025 hasn't been the strongest year for movies so far, not without its hidden gems like Warfare, Ephus, Black Bag, but then most offerings this year have just been okay to not okay. So thank you, Ryan Coogler, for giving us something to sink our teeth into. Welcome to the channel, bloodsuckers. Let's talk Sinners.
My body is ready.
This is Ryan Coogler's first wholly original film. It takes place in 1930s Jim Crow era Clarksdale, Mississippi, where twins with a reputation named Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, returned from Chicago to open a juke joint. However, a group of vampires are prepared to ruin their festivities. I'm not gonna lie, reviewing and breaking this movie down is intimidating. I am very fortunate to live close to one of those theaters that was showing it in true IMAX, and I also decided to watch it on IMAX Digital, and I may try to watch this movie again in true IMAX before it's gone. Because what makes Sinners intimidating to try and review is it demands multiple viewings. You need to catch all the references, understand the connections, feel the roots and the soul of the movie, and the genius writing. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this movie since my first watch. I'm basically saying Ryan Coogler is a genius. Feel free to yell at me all you want when I tell you the only other Ryan Coogler movie I've seen is Wakanda Forever.
Wakanda Forever!
But here's something I know from those two films that I've seen from Ryan Coogler. One, the man has talent. Two, he has passion. There's that Kodak video that's gone viral of Ryan breaking down the kinds of films and format you could watch Sinners on, and it's fascinating. The one part he says, "I'll try not to get emotional," is quite wonderful. And I'm so happy that I got to watch Sinners in the format that he preferred. And beyond the filmmaking process and the blend of film and the new technology, all the geeky stuff, you feel Ryan Coogler's voice in this script. He has said that this movie is written in homage to his uncle that passed away while he was filming Creed. His uncle was obsessed with the blues music, and he would regale Coogler with Tales of Mississippi. A lot more in-depth research later, and here we are with Sinners. It brings me to the care and the craft in this movie. Amazing production design. Shout out Hannah Beachler for immersing us in the South and in the era with all the buildings. Especially those one-shots that reveal the train platform and the street markets are very much segregated. Great cinematography. Shout out Autumn Durald Arkapaw, the first female cinematographer to handle IMAX cameras. I love the deep shadows, the scope of the ratio changes, the one-shot sequences. Ludwig Göransson, forget about it. Blues influence and riffs of electric guitar and other musics that the blues has directly influenced. Genius work. Shout out to two-time Oscar-winning costume designer Ruthie Carter for even more fabulous costume work. She helps to bring the town to life and differentiate the twins. And now let's get to the ensemble, which is fairly large, but no one puts in a bad performance. Michael B. Jordan is great. I love the rough edges that he gives the twins. Admittedly, I kind of roll my eyes at the name Smoke and Stack. And also, admittedly, on my first watch, it took a little bit to tell the twins apart in the latter half of the movie, especially without their hats and colors. But on second watch, I had that better feel for their personalities and the work that Michael B. Jordan put into them. I like how Stack is the more fun-loving wild card that loves to see his community let loose, and Smoke is the sterner one that wants to see his community succeed. The little nuances that they place to show that are great. Stack picks up Slim and Cornbread by appealing to their personalities and hypes up little Sammy and his musical talents. Smoke quite literally teaches a little girl to bargain, and we see that influence that he's had on the town when we see him bargain with Grace, the general store owner's wife. She already knows what's up, and I think it's a fantastic little add-on. For good measure, he also demonstrates what happens when you cross him. They drive this overarching theme in Sinners of what is sinful versus evil. The twins are opening this juke joint to uplift their southern black community, but have also done so with theft, aggression, occasional threats. They ran with gangs in Chicago, so they aren't evil because their intentions are good, but their hands are also not clean. But this goes for all the characters in the movie. Each of them indulge in sin in some form. I'm sure you could try to shoehorn them into some kind of seven deadly sins comparison, drinking, aggression, lust, adultery. You are not ready for the amount of talk alone about oral sex. The two twins have their love interest. Mary is played by Haley Steinfeld. She is mixed race and has a black grandmother, but is white passing. The dynamics she brings are the ones that I relate to, belonging to multiple cultures, but ultimately being drawn to the ones that you feel most love and the ones that express that love. And you see Stack express his love for Mary by protecting her for the persecution she'd face by associating with black folk, because again, she is white passing. Wunmi Mosaku plays Smoke's love interest Annie, a hoodoo healer and the fountain of knowledge for the magic and mythical. She truly is the blood that flows through this movie, making sure Smoke is protected as they have a history and she's worried of their nefarious deeds. Omar Miller as Cornbread, great comedic relief and muscle. Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim is a damn near scene stealer as the local drunkard and talented musician. Jamie Lawson as Pearline, a talented local singer. Lee Jun Lee and Yao as Grace and Bo Chow, the Chinese immigrant market owners. Just an interesting inclusion, but historically accurate ones, and I love the fact that they have southern accents and not Chinese ones. And then there's Miles Katzen, Preacher Boy, Sammy Moore, a revelation, honestly, a talented R&B singer that has toured with her and learned guitar for this role. The beating heart of this movie with aspirations beyond the church life he was raised in. No idea if it is confirmed or not, but I wouldn't put it past Ryan Coogler to choose this as inspiration. But Sammy may be based around the legend of guitarist Robert Johnson, who at a crossroads supposedly sold his soul to the devil in exchange for mastery over the guitar. And then there's the other overarching legend in the movie that there are people that exist that can create healing and summon evil through their music and pierce the veil, as they say. And if we're talking about Preacher Boy, I'll address the scene. And I'll be vague just in case someone hasn't seen this movie yet, to which I say, stop watching me and go watch this movie. But the first time we get to see Sammy play in the juke joint, it's an amazing one-shot sequence that both times I watched it, I levitated, I was out of my body, demonstrating and invoking the power of music and culture and how it heals, entertains, and reverberates throughout past, present, and future. And I love how that scene ends with the music and its powers enduring even when around them there's violence, danger, and darkness, including vampires. Jack O. Russell leads the vampire clan as Remick, invoking Irish influences drawn to Sammy's music and talent. Remick and the vampires try to sell this lifestyle with politeness, immortality, longevity, equality, and fellowship. My takeaway is how vampirism is a larger metaphor for assimilation of culture. Like, we can trace a lot of musical influence to blues music, and we see how more specifically white people reap the rewards of black artists a la Elvis Presley, or like how we bastardize the Harlem Shake. And not just music and not just black culture, I think about the subcategory of American Chinese food, shout out to the inclusion of the Chinese immigrants. Culture vultures is another term I think about. And for good measure, throughout the movie, there are several vultures circling the sky. And I love the details of the vultures landing when the vampires are closing in on a victim. But that's not the only villain in Sinners, because there's also straight up racists. You know, the guys in hoodies. There's a great payoff to this in Sinners.
Hot take. Don't be racist.
This is Jim Crow era South, the 1930s. Ryan Coogler takes his time in the first portion of Sinners to set up trauma and immerse us in the time. The twins make the remark about how Chicago is just the racist South, with buildings versus plantations, selling people on the chance of equality, but there's no real opportunity for them. Delta Slim has this amazing scene in which he talks about having a bandmate lynched because he had money on him, and you don't see the reenactment, but you hear the audio of the story unfold. And Delta Slim's first instinct after telling this traumatic story is to break into song. Another example of how music is a source of healing. Many black folk are still picking cotton and they're underpaid, still struggling overall. And you see why this juke joint that Smoke and Stack are opening would be so important to the community. A respite to escape that trauma. And I love how this is countered with the church, because spirituality is a similar source of healing for these folk. but as long as it's not forced upon them like it was for Sammy, which is why he finds solace in music instead. And layering on the oppression is the inclusion of two other groups other than Black folk, and it's the same three groups that are mentioned in the opening legend of the people whose song is able to pierce the veil. The Choctaw tribe being driven from their home, and now they're appearing in this movie as vampire hunters, and the Irish, who had the English Catholic colonialism brought onto them, and Remick falls into his Irish roots. And you see Remick the vampire allude to this and how this kind of oppression has just been normalized for him, how the Our Father prayer supposedly gives him comfort even though it's the same words that were forced upon him. I think there is the argument that the vampire aspects of this movie aren't that unique. Garlic, sunlight, stakes to the heart, don't invite them in. Same rules apply. But my opinion is that it didn't really need to. Nailing the action, gore, and intimidation was all that mattered when it comes to those horror aspects for me. And my scared ass still jumped 3 times. Those red eyes, inspired by death in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. The main event of the vampire carnage I think is very entertaining, and the follow-up after those events are really well paid off. But I also need to address the fact that Sinners uses a mid-credit and end-credit scene in service to the story itself, and it's not like a stinger or something or a sequel setup. And in order to do that, I need to go into spoilers. So here's the spoiler warning. I'll time code the time to skip somewhere above and below in the description so that you can skip to my final thoughts. The spoilers will begin in 3, 2, 1. So real quick, before we actually talk about those end credit scenes, seeing Smoke gun down a bunch of white supremacists is awesome. Unloading an entire magazine into the clan leader is gangster as fuck. And it's topped off with the visual of him putting down his earthly vices of the cigarette and the gun and his anger so that he can pass on, and then he gets to hold his daughter next to Annie. It's so beautifully done. The main ending of the movie is seeing Sammy move on from Mississippi, and he gets to pursue music. Cut to 60 years later when Sammy is now a accomplished musician and he's played by Buddy Guy. He's had all the success, and after one gig, in enters Mary and Stack, both turned into vampires and escaped the bloodbath 60 years ago. There's this scene of closure in which Stack says that he promised Smoke to leave Sammy alone before he was let go that night, and Sammy doesn't have that much longer to live according to his scent. Stack offers to turn Sammy for immortality and legacy. Sammy turns him down, saying, "I'm ready to die.
Why won't you let me die?"
And they reflect on the events that night, how it was the best night for them both. I'm sure you've seen that screenshot of the twins standing in the sunset floating around. And for Stack, it's the last time that he saw the son and his brother. And then Sammy plays the song that he was playing in the car that afternoon running errands with Stack. But then we also skip to the end credits scene in which a younger Sammy plays This Little Light of Mine on guitar in the church. There's this acceptance of two worlds of potential healing colliding, the church and music. And I love the fact that the last frame of the movie is Sammy looking up as if he's again transcended time, and we don't know who is standing there. If it's a good entity, a bad entity, maybe it was nothing, and maybe it was just all part of his personal healing journey. Did I miss anything? I'm sure I did. This movie is just a lot. I totally forgot to talk about how Ryan Coogler gets the rights back to this movie after 25 years. It's again a layer of making sure Black voices are kept intact and integral, and retaking ownership of his work. This guy has thought of everything. Ryan Coogler has made the equivalent of film lasagna with layers on layers on layers, and it demands repeat servings. I mean viewings. I may as well talk a bit more about awards talk, but we've all been in this situation before. It's a horror movie, it's a Black Stories movie, it's released early in the year. Everyone's favorite thing is the score a la Challengers, and Challengers got goose-egged. It's going to be an uphill battle for Sinners, but I would love to see it in a lot of these tech categories that I mentioned earlier. Ideally director, Original screenplay and picture. Acting, I'd root for anyone to break in, but I think that one's gonna be the roughest thing to get in. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm more rooting for Miles Casson because, again, that was a debut performance. Maybe they redeemed Delroy Lindo for the Five Bloods. Maybe Michael B. Jordan finally gets to be an awards player. But what's great about this is actually there is more time for more people to get out there and watch this absolute revelation. We just need to build this momentum through the rest of the year. We've been begging for original IP movies, and let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's watch this movie. Let's rewatch this movie over and over again. And let's get our point across that this is one of the best movies of the year, of the decade. I give Sinners 5 out of 5 stars. Thank you for watching. My name is Kyle, and I'm still learning to fall in love with the medium of cinema. And if you'd like to join me on that journey, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and follow me on Letterboxd. If you made it through the review, I thank you because I know I'm getting this out late, but I wanted to do this movie justice. Comment below your thoughts on Sinners. What's your favorite Ryan Coogler film? What's your favorite vampire film? Don't forget to like this video. Until next time, that's a wrap.